God, I've been off the internet for like, 1 week moving house, and I just see this blow up everywhere. I know I'm slightly late to the show, but I still wanted to get across my thoughts, and I don't really have a setup at the moment, so it's just voice only. I might dive into some smaller spoilers, but nothing huge. Anyway, the Marvels. Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, and Monica Rambeau, aka... Well, I'm actually not sure. I don't think they actually said her superhero name out loud. I had to Google it, and I think it's Spectrum. Anyways, the three of them are intertwined as they take on a Kree extremist who seeks to steal natural resources from across the galaxy to restore the Kree homeworld. Now, like I said, the internet has had absolutely no chill in this one. I've seen this labelled as the worst MCU project ever, and an insane amount of hate that's just been thrown to every cast member on this film. And I can pinpoint the bits of the film which are making people on the internet blow up in rage, and some bits I think we're overreacting on, and others I can definitely not defend as much. The first and biggest problem for me is editing. You take each scene individually and there's not necessarily anything wrong with it, but the stitching of all these moments into one cohesive story makes certain moments feel very jarring. You could easily see which moments were reshoots when you get whiplash from going from a light-hearted comedic moment into an emotional argument between main characters in the space of less than 10 seconds. The acting of the three main leads was never the problem, but it was when the story had decided when each character should be acting as what. Unfortunately, editing is just a job you don't notice until it's wrong, and it's very, very wrong here. Speaking of reshoots, it seems to be the MCU crucifix at the moment, and it's slowly killing all the latest projects, and here it's no different. Not only is the problem about the size of the reshoots, which has hurt the editing and subsequently the story, but also the visual effects that have been affected too. There's really obvious moments where it feels heavily green screened, and there's environments that you can pick out which feel barely dressed due to what feel like massive time constraints from reshoots. And then subsequently CGI qualities had to be sacrificed as well, though not necessarily showing bad CGI here, but they made questionable cuts and edits to avoid the task of something like a CGI transitional shot. So you have really heavy hard cuts like ships flying off from planets but not seeing them actually take off in the first place. Captain Marvel in the first film does show off some fancy outfit changes on screen, but here they just simply cut away and show the outcome with some weird JPEG sparkles above her. I think it was to make it look like magic off screen. It's clearly because of time constraints again, and there's an easy 5 or 6 moments which this is painfully apparent. But I do think a lot of things worked here that helped to sell this film. Number one, I think the big one is characters. Brie Larson, I feel, does a better job portraying Captain Marvel here than we've seen before, and whilst not perfectly executed because of, again, editing, we did get a lot more emotional scenes showing Captain Marvel in some different lights than what we've seen previously. Teyonah Parris makes a great addition as Monica Rambeau, and again, people complain about the difficulty in understanding her powers, and I get that, but they did give us time explaining her powers to us, and they showcased a skill set that made her feel different from both Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel. Iman Vellani, you've probably already heard, is the MVP here, and I agree. She is the glue that keeps this group together in terms of on-screen chemistry, and I was just infected by her obvious enjoyment she had in set. Again, with this there are some hiccups however, and that being the main villain, who I won't dispute is an easy contender for the worst MCU villain to date. Not really Zawe Ashton's fault, although the lines and the voice she had for the villain felt insanely cartoonish, but hey, that was maybe a direction she was told to go. No, it was more how they wrote her out of the final act, and it seems like a victim again of reshoots and poor editing. Nick Fury's character is jarringly different from Secret Invasion, but that project was a bust, and I'm quite happy not to be reminded of that again if I'm honest. I think his character in Secret Invasion would have felt a bit out of place in this film, which had a much light-hearted, funnier tone, so I can see why they had him be the way he was. Points 2 and 3, which I'll call the singing planet and the cat scene, are points which I feel if you're going into this film already fed up with the MCU, then it might have been the final straw for you. The singing planet does feel very left field, and again, editing decisions made me think there was more to this planet than what they kept in. But I think if people saw this concept a few years back before this so-called MCU fatigue, it would not be getting nearly as much bust as it is now. It's a bit of a double-edged sword as well, where if you don't try scenes like this, then your movie's considered bland and formulaic, and if you do, it seems to be a bit risky, and in this case, doesn't pay off. I thought at face value it was just a humorous 10-minute scene, and I was happy to sit and watch it. The cat scene though, I thought was just straight up great fun if I'm honest. I think I'm just surprised more people didn't enjoy that bit. Number 4 was the sets, which I feel were far more interesting than when you compare it to films like Ant-Man 3, though that's not a high bar. And number 5 was the really clever fight choreography. The movie is themed around this body switching mechanic, and I can only imagine the nightmare it was to make a cohesive, easy to follow fight scene using that mechanic where characters are just switching all over the place. The first big action moment set at Miss Marvel's home was so much fun to watch. Great way to draw a lot of humour from a scenario everyone was in. The final battle scene unfortunately didn't stick the landing 100%, but it still committed to the mechanic and moulded it into a serious final showdown setting. It's just a shame it was overly cut to shit, which made it even harder for the audience to follow what was going on. But yeah, it was just clear to me that this movie was not as bad as what people were making it out to be. Maybe going in with lower expectations helped me here, but I honestly preferred it to Ant-Man 3, Thor 4, even the original Captain Marvel, and it's certainly better than Secret Invasion 2. The internet's obsession on this film seems to be because it's the straw that broke the camel's back. The film's review seems to be more judged based on where it is along the declining MCU timeline of popularity and less on its individual merit. It's unfair, but I do get the justification to an extent. MCU content is bloating the overall story, making audiences tired of keeping up with it, and it's also making creators tired of hitting these insane deadlines. It's clear an overhaul is needed, and the box office for this film will make that point pretty clear for Disney. But I want to stress that I don't think the Marvels should be the sole focal point behind that anger. I kind of feel bad for it. I had more fun with this than I didn't, and based purely off of that, I would give it a recommendation to people I know who are fans of the superhero genre. Anyways, we've been promised change and a focus on quality over quantity, and we'll just have to sit tight and see how that comes to fruition. Unfortunately, a lot of these projects were in production before this problem was publicly recognised, and I'm not sure how easy it would be to fix these projects without extensive reshoots, which we've seen here doesn't tend to work out for the best. It's an interesting topic and one I'd love to hear your thoughts more on down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this longer review than normal, feel free to like and subscribe, and as always stay tuned for more reviews on movies, anime and video games. Until next time guys, take care, bye bye.